you watch Yankee games on TV now, and right behind home plate, there's a lot of empty seats because those tickets are like $1,000.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Yep.
And I think because you see the empty seats, you get the feeling, the impression that the fans don't care. I think the fans do care, but the fans can't afford it. Even well-heeled people or people who have tickets and don't go to the game because they don't feel like going on a Wednesday night. So those seats are empty. So why not try to integrate people who don't have the same kind of opportunities financially to see a game and maybe find a way to where they could sit in those seats if people aren't using them.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right on the aspect of lowering fan attendance and just lower interest in the game. The thing that's always ticked me off about the NBA is it just seems so predictable. I mean, you have that league more than any other. To me, feels like there's the greatest amount of teams tanking for the best draft spots. And
right.
we were at a time just a couple of years ago where the Cavaliers and Warriors made it to the finals. Was it 4 years in a row?
Yeah.
I mean, that should never happen in a competitive league, in a competitive sports league.
Good point.
It's great for yeah, go ahead.
It's a good point. I was going to say something else, and that is, even a great franchise like the Lakers, they spent a lot of money on LeBron. They tied him up to a long-term deal. They may get a player or two. They might get Anthony Davis. They may get, Kyrie Irving, or who knows who might be available in the offseason. But for the most part, even if you spend the money, and you're a great, proud franchise. Celtics, too. Celtics a little bit better. But, the Lakers didn't even make the playoffs this year. It's like 5 years in a row or 4 years in a row they haven't even made the playoffs. That's another thing. Your so-called Cadillac teams and Cadillac franchises, which make the game interesting and more compelling, are fewer and further between. Now you're seeing a Milwaukee starting. I personally think Milwaukee's going to give Golden State a real run for it. But I think you're starting to finally see the smaller markets, but it's taken decades, really, for Milwaukee to really be in the thick of things. And it took one or two players. The Freak is going to be a great big player for them and going to be in the playoffs, but it's been a long, long time. You lose a whole generation of young people who don't really care about necessarily the Milwaukee Bucks. There's a core of 16, 17,000 fans who go at night. And say even in Milwaukee, I'm sure the tickets are a lot cheaper there, but you're still not seeing. You're quite right. You need as many competitive teams in any sport to make the game more interesting.
Yeah, that's why hockey is my personal favorite sport. I've been a Kings fan for about a decade now, and we're seeing it in these playoffs right now. The amount of parity in the playoffs are reaching levels we haven't seen in a long time. Both number one seeds in both conferences have lost. Right. One of them was swept.
Right.
The Lightning. I think everyone in America outside of Tampa Bay could laugh at that. But then Calgary loses. We're at a stage now where 7 of the 8 top seeds in the first round may lose. It's wide open.
No doubt. There's no doubt about it. And in the case of Toronto, it seems Toronto. I think they're leading. They're in Game 5. They won 2-1. I think it just ended. This was yesterday, I believe. But you're looking at some of these classic teams like the Bruins, the Kings, and a lot of these teams are struggling now. It may be good for the sport to see some other teams mixed around, but I still think you need the Colossals. You think you like the great teams. You don't see a lot of great teams anymore. Golden State in basketball, great team. I would say the Red Sox last year was a great team. Dodgers maybe too. But you look around, even in football, how many really, truly great teams do you think there were? Like probably 3, 4 maybe?
Mm-hmm.
How many? You could count them on one hand. And I just think it's a better time when more of these teams are mixed in and still you have the juggernaut. You still have the great teams. And because of free agency, among other reasons, you don't see it anymore. But in the case of hockey, Tampa Bay, that was a shocker. And right now, the NHL is, third or fourth in terms of appeal for the average fan. You're a rarity. But I think at least hockey, you could see some teams that for years maybe the Leafs haven't been great for years. And now they're starting to come back. And, Avalanche against the Flames, they won yesterday. They won that series. So, you're starting to see some teams starting to come back again. But there's still a lot of crucial problems in sports.